You're watching Auto Johnny.
Sup internet, I'm Auto Johnny, and welcome back to another electrifying episode of Let's Talk About. It's a series where I talk about upcoming movies, TV series, the history of production of how they're made, along with movie news and comics. Then I break them down to make them easy to follow, and give you my personal thoughts. I swear, when coming up with this lineup, I did not intend for the running theme to be Universal Monsters, but here we are with Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein movie. Based on the classic novel by Mary Shelley, this story is not only considered the first sci-fi novel, but is also the subject of multiple adaptations and parodies, cementing the Frankenstein monster and this story within pop culture. And now, famed director Guillermo del Toro is taking a crack at it. In fact, this is another one of Guillermo del Toro's passion project that he wanted to do since he was a little kid. The other one being Pinocchio, which, man, that is one hell of a story behind that one. Computer, log, let's talk about Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Anyways, if he has as much passion for that story, I'm sure this will be a brilliant Frankenstein movie. So, beware that thunderstorm up ahead, and let's talk about Frankenstein. Now, Del Toro first mentioned doing a Frankenstein adaptation all the way back in 2007, saying that it was one of his favorite books and film that he wants to make. Hell, he was offered to do one by Universal, but turned it down. Then a year later, he mentioned he was making plans to start working on the film, but had to stop. Now, sources varied on why he had to stop, but the results were still the same. It resulted in him shelving the project for many years. He would mention some ideas he had for the movie between 2013 and 2014, and even once again, Universal came to him to direct the Frankenstein movie and The Bride of Frankenstein, Universal's upcoming Dark Universe, which I already talked about in my Wolfman video, but nothing materialized, especially after the dissolvement of the Dark Universe. Then in 2023, after the success of the Oscar-winning stop-motion film, Pinocchio, Netflix was eager to work with Guillermo del Toro again. Like the lightning bolt that struck the monster, Netflix brought the project to life!
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
And eventually we would get an official cast. But before we talk about the cast, we have to jump all the way back to 2008, where he initially had Frankenstein's monster played by freaking collaborator Doug Jones. Then in 2013, he actually considered Benedict Cumberbatch to play the monster. And it's not that strange, because after all, he had some experience with the source material when he actually played Victor Frankenstein in a stage plays adaptation by Danny Boyle. Okay, now we can talk about the cast. First, we have Oscar Isaac as the mad scientist Victor Frankenstein. Then, we originally had Andrew Garfield as the monster, but Andrew had to drop out, and now we have Jacob Elordi taking over as the monster. Unfortunately, those are the only characters that I can actually confirm. The rest are either undisclosed or heavily speculated. For examples, actors like Felix Kramer, Lars Mikkelsen, David Bradley, and Kristen Covey are all undisclosed. However, Christoph Waltz is supposedly playing Dr. Pretorius, as this movie is not adapting the novel, but the sequel film, The Bride of Frankenstein, and Dr. Pretorius is a major character in that film. I'll talk about The Bride of Frankenstein once something's concrete, but all you need to know is that it's known for introducing the bride, which, by the way, Mia Goth is either playing the bride or Frankenstein's love interest. But either way, she is doing a body scan, so it might lead to her being the bride. With the cast all set, filming will start on February 12th, and they will film in places like Toronto and Scotland. We even got some set photos of what they look like, and honestly, it doesn't look that bad. I'm honestly really interested in how this film is going to turn out. All I do know is that, according to Jacob Elordi, it is, quote, one hell of a movie. Filming will wrap up on September 30th of 2024, and currently there's no release date, but it's expected to come out in 2025.
It's alive. It's alive.
And that's the end of the video. What do you think of Frankenstein? And if I missed anything, Like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell for notifications. And until next time, I'm Auto Johnny, and end transmission. Over the weekend, we got the trailer for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Now, I made a video talking about this film last year on my YouTube channel. In fact, I might to make a follow-up to that video soon. But yeah, so far the film looks really good. It boasts a lot of striking yet haunting imagery, a strong gothic style, and is dripping with atmosphere. You can also get a brief look at some of the characters in the film, and of course, hiding what the monster might look like. This honestly looks like a really haunting retelling of the classic Frankenstein story, which makes sense as it is a passion project a lifetime in the making. And knowing Del Toro's work, expect the monster to not be as clear-cut as you think. Last year in October, I talked about Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Well, since then, we have gotten some new information and a new teaser trailer. Sup, internet? I'm Auto Johnny, and while I'm working on part 2 of Superman, I wanted to make a quick updated video talking about Frankenstein. Frankenstein? So, call me a mad scientist as I stitch all this information together and bring the episode to life like a bolt of lightning. And let's talk about Frankenstein again.
You're watching Auto Johnny.
First, I want to start with the cast. But first, here's a clip from the last time I talked about Frankenstein's cast. First, we have Oscar Isaac as the mad scientist Victor Frankenstein. Then, we originally had Andrew Garfield as the monster, but Andrew had to drop out, and now we have Jacob Elordi taking over as the monster. Unfortunately, those are the only characters that I can actually confirm. The rest are either undisclosed or heavily speculated. For examples, actors like Felix Kramer, Lars Mikkelsen, David Bradley, and Kristen Covey are all undisclosed. However, Christoph Waltz is supposedly playing Dr. Pretorius, as this movie is not adapting the novel, but the sequel film, The Bride of Frankenstein, and Dr. Pretorius is a major character in that film. I'll talk about The Bride of Frankenstein once something's concrete, but all you need to know is that it's known for introducing the bride, which, by the way, Mia Goth is either playing the bride or Frankenstein's love interest. But either way, she is doing a body scan, so it might lead to her being the bride. Everyone all caught up? Good. Now let's talk about the cast. First of all, there's Mia Goth, who has been confirmed to be playing Elizabeth Bones, basically Victor's fiancée. Then there's Christoph Waltz, who is not playing Dr. Pretorius like I talked about in the last video, but is playing the new character called Harlander. Ralph Ineson playing Professor Krempe. Also, we got Felix Kramer as William, Lars Mikkelsen as Captain Anderson, David Bradley as Blind Man, Kristen Covey as Young Victor, and Charlie Dance in an undisclosed role. Soon, we will get our first official look on November 21st of 2024 through Variety Fair, showing Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein, Jacob Elordi as the monster, and the lab, which is of course filled with dead bodies. Following that, on May 18th of 2025, we learned that the composer of the film will be Alexandre Desplat, who worked with Del Toro on movies like The Shape of Water and Pinocchio, with Desplat describing the film as saying, "So I think the music of Frankenstein will be something more lyrical and emotional. I'm not trying to write a horrific movie." With Del Toro on the same page saying that this is not a horror film, saying, "For the first time, I considered that. It's an emotional story for me. It is a personal story as anything. I'm asking a question about being a father, being a son. I'm not doing a horror movie, ever. I'm not trying to do that." Then on May 31st, during Netflix Tadam, we actually got the teaser trailer. Now, I made a short video talking about my initial impressions, so if you're curious, check that out in the notifications over my head. However, my opinions haven't really changed. I still love the trailer, and I think the look of the film looks great, so there's nothing much to add there. However, I would like to expand on the idea that I mentioned at the tail end of the short, how basically the monster may not be as clear-cut as you think, and considering that the monster has been often portrayed as very sympathetic, and all this talk about father to son in that interview, I wonder if the monster will be very human and maybe Victor Frankenstein might be the real monster. At least that's what I think from this first look. Either way, Frankenstein will come to life sometime in November of 2025. Told you this will be a short one. So what do you think of Frankenstein? And if you have any theories about this film, drop them down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that bell for notifications. And until next time, I'm Auto Johnny and end transmission.